Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third in our spring 2021 series on World Wednesday series. This session is on how to afford study abroad and away. So thanks everyone for being here. My name is Andrea Dvorak. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm Associate Director of Off-Campus Programs here at Augsburg University. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're gonna kick it off by talking a little bit about how study abroad works with financial aid, how financial aid works with study abroad and away. And we have a guest here from our financial aid office to talk a little bit about that. I have an alum spotlight for you where you're gonna hear a little bit about a past student who won several scholarships to study abroad and hear directly from him about that experience. I'm gonna tell you about some of the great low-cost programs we have available for Augies, and along the way we'll do a lot of cost-saving tips and strategies. There will be some time for Q&A at the end as well. So let's kick it off here. The first question is, how does financial aid work for study abroad and away? And I have my colleague here, Catherine Maun, who I would love to talk a little bit about this. Happy to tag team with you, Catherine.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Maun. I am the Associate Director of Financial Aid in the Financial Aid Office, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. And in terms of financial aid and its interaction with studying abroad, the nice thing is that it's pretty simple because whatever financial aid you qualify for, if you were attending Augsburg here at home, it's the same thing. It's still based on the exact number of credits that you are taking. That really is the main interaction with what type of financial aid you qualify for and the amounts. So same as if you were here on campus, it interacts in the same way. So pretty simple.
Yeah, I think the other thing I just would like to highlight for everyone, so yeah, whatever aid you have, you can use. That makes it easier for a lot of our students. But there's a couple other things we do, which I always like to point out. We do build for students for semester programs. We build a personalized cost estimate for any student who's thinking about study abroad. As soon as you open an application, we will start working on that. And you can take a look at that before you commit. So you can really get a sense of what your costs are. And we're going to take a look at a cost estimate sample here in a minute. So that gives you a sense of what the cost really will be and makes it a little bit more real for you. So I think that's really helpful. The other thing to just point out, I have a number of students every year who I hear about who are interested in going multiple times. You can study abroad multiple times and use your financial aid every time, but there are some limits on that as you start to do that. So definitely talk to us in our office if you're interested in studying abroad multiple times, so we can help you make sure that you get your financial aid every single time. I also have a couple notes here about short-term programs. We do bill your student account for short-term programs. These are the ones that happen in January, between the two semesters, in spring break, in March, or maybe at the beginning of May for May term programs. Those are billed to your student account, but they are on top of your regular costs. So maybe Catherine, you might say a little bit more about that. I mean, you've already used most of your financial aid in those situations, so you might not have a whole lot left over. But summer's a little different maybe, so we can maybe talk a little bit about summer. We do have some great scholarships for those short programs too in a lot of cases, so that's another place we can look.
Yeah, one thing I do like to mention, because students get concerned about this, is the nice thing about those short-term programs that either fall into the fall or the spring semester is that if those additional credits are causing you to be above the 19 credit limit for the semester, students are often worried about that overload fee. We do waive that if the study abroad credits are causing you to go above 19 credits. So at least, you know, you don't have to worry about that additional tuition cost. It's really just looking at what is that additional cost of the program that you're going on.
Yeah, okay, great. Yes, good point. And yes, a lot of students do that, either use those short programs maybe in spring break or January term to make you full-time, or you can take it as the overload. Either way, you don't pay that extra overload fee. Okay, well, let's move on. We have some here great questions to ask financial aid. Catherine, do you want to go over these?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the main questions that I get, or that we encourage students to talk to us about, is how many credits do they need to be taking either while here or while studying abroad, to get the maximum amount of their financial aid. Most students realize that they do have to be in 12 credits to get most of their Augsburg scholarships, and various grants. The one that we run into issues with, and it can be a problem with studying abroad, I think, because sometimes credits translate differently, and just determining how many you need to be in can be a little trickier. But if you do qualify for the Minnesota State grant, you do have to be enrolled in 15 plus credits to get your maximum state grant eligibility. And I know that there have been some issues with students when they study abroad and how those credits translate. So if you are a Minnesota State grant recipient, I think it's extra important to check in with us, figure out how many credits you need, 15 plus, and make sure you can actually get that many credits when you're studying abroad. So that's one thing I always like to highlight that has caused issues in the past. And the timing of figuring out how many credits do I need, and making sure that it's not getting the transcript at the end of the semester and finding out you didn't get enough. That can cause some financial stress as well. So that's one main thing. Let's see. Well, yeah, and then I don't know, do you want me to go into the summer eligibility or how that works?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just mention a little bit about, yeah, how this summer aid works. It's mostly, it's
Yeah.
again about credits, right? How many credits you get.
Yep, it's still related to credits. Summer is different just because students don't qualify for their Augsburg scholarships. So it's really looking at if you qualify for the federal Pell Grant or the Minnesota State Grant, there is potential eligibility in that regard. Also with federal student loans, if you haven't utilized the full amount of those during the academic year, there is potential there, but it's really mostly focused on federal and state financial aid. So it looks pretty different than the fall and spring semesters, and it varies per student too. So I always tell students to check in with us about your specific financial situation, and also if you're thinking about 4 credits, or maybe I'll be in 8 credits, that's going to change the amount of financial aid you qualify for as well. So in conclusion, check in with us. It varies a lot in the summertime.
And then I think this last question is so helpful about sort of thinking about payment plans and loans and other things. What's available to me, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because, it depends on the program a lot. And I know that Andrea is going to go into this, like how much additional cost is studying abroad. And it can vary so much because like we mentioned, you're getting the same financial aid, but some of the study abroad programs are much more expensive. Some are not. Which is a great opportunity. But if you are concerned about, looking at your overall cost for this semester, if it's looking higher than what you're usually having to pay, if you're wanting to know, usually all of my financial aid covers my costs, and now I might have to get an additional loan. I've never looked into other loans. We're happy to run through that with you if you want to talk about different payment plan options. There are different things that can help in those situations.
Okay, great. I see we have a question here from Sabrina. Do you want to either speak up, Sabrina, or you can type it into the chat, either way.
Yeah, so I have the Promise Grant, and I know that we can't, sign up for scholarships through Augsburg. Does this not count?
That is a really good question. Yeah, so you are referencing the fact that all of your gift aid adds up to your tuition and fee costs. And so we would still cover the tuition and fee costs, but then anything additional, just like right now, if you're on campus, even as a Promise student, you need to cover housing and meal plan. That would be the same if you're studying abroad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've had a number of Promise Grant students study abroad and use their Promise Grant. It's fine. But yeah, sometimes the program housing costs could be higher, or maybe not so much higher, or et cetera. And there's other costs too, which we'll talk a little bit about. But you can use your Promise grant for study abroad.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to give us a chance to take a look a little bit at the cost estimate. So let's go over and take a look at a sample of this. So I guess maybe Catherine, we can sort of tag team on this, but I put a copy here of what a cost estimate looks like. So this is something we'll build for any student who creates an application in our system for a semester program or a whole year program, which again, you can do for no cost. There's no cost to starting an application. And then we'll build something like this for you, which gives really specific information about the program costs and your financial aid. So you can see I've sort of tried to color code this. So the red arrow is pointing to the sort of top section is about what the actual charges would be to your student account. This is basically Augsburg tuition in most cases instead of the program tuition, but there might be, as you can see in this case, room and board for the program that's being charged there. So this is what will sort of the charges to your student account essentially is what would be there. Box B, the blue bar there is the blue arrow, is giving you a sense of what your financial aid is. So this is the term you plan to be gone. What kind of financial aid should you have? And I think, you know, for many students, this kind of looks familiar, but I have had students look at this and say, well, that doesn't seem right. I know that I get this other thing and I don't see it there. So I just recommend asking financial aid if you have questions about this, or if it doesn't seem, or if it doesn't seem right to you for some reason.
Yeah, and
then,
I'll just,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I'll mention really quick in terms of the estimated financial aid, it can be a little bit tricky depending on what time of year you're wanting the cost estimate versus when you're studying abroad, because we might have to look at a previous year and maybe, you know, hey, but what about I'm getting that outside scholarship for that semester? Well, we might not have captured that. So definitely feel free to check in with us if you're thinking that something's missing or something's a little bit off. It might be based off a previous semester.
Yes, great point. That is a big part of this. And it's just the nature of planning far ahead like this. So a lot of students would imagine these things, the cost to you here at Augsburg and your financial aid, but what about those out-of-pocket expenses? I'm not going to charge you for things like a flight or your passport or your textbooks when you're there, but those are costs I think you're going to want to have money for. And so we try to estimate those for you. You can see here in that section, which has the sort of yellow arrow there for that. That's the section of estimated out-of-pocket expenses. And then this all adds up so you can kind of see after my financial aid is included and I'm looking at my charges and here's my estimated cost. Well, what does this all add up to? How much more do I owe or not based on that? So this is something every student gets to take a look at, and you can ask me questions about the program fees that are on here or how we estimated some of the costs. And you can also, again, talk to financial aid about any questions you have about that side of it. Okay, so I'm going to move on then, I think. I'd love to tell you guys all about some great scholarships to consider, because on top of all of the regular financial aid that you have, there are some great scholarships out there that can help cover the cost of study abroad. So here are a bunch of different scholarships I'd love for you to know about. These sort of apply to different students in different situations, so I'll tell you a little bit more about each of these. Boren and Gilman there at the top, these are sort of national scholarships, mostly run honestly by the federal government, so they're sort of connected in some way to whether you're Pell eligible, for example, or things like that. And then the Fund for Education Abroad, relatively new organization, but they give big scholarships out to students as well. Each program has their own specific scholarships, so we'll tell you some about that. And the Freeman Asia Scholarship is a great one too if you're thinking about Asia. You have to go to Asia to get that one. So a little bit more about each of these. So Boren is a great one for folks thinking about studying languages, if you're really interested in studying languages, and if you're interested in working for the federal government. This is a scholarship that funds specific language study, and you work for the federal government for at least a year after you graduate. It's a big scholarship too, up to $25,000 for a whole year to study abroad. That's due in early February. Today is actually the deadline for this particular year. So that comes up every year. So keep that in mind for sure if you're thinking about that. The Gilman Scholarship, great opportunity for students who are Pell eligible. So this is does require Pell eligibility. You can win up to $5,000 per semester abroad, or up to $8,000 if you study a critical language. So similar to Boren, they have some languages they'd love for more students to learn. Great opportunity there. They have 2 deadlines every year, one in early March, so that's coming up soon for those thinking about that. And then in early October, they also have a deadline. You can also apply for this multiple times. So the deadline in early March is for several semesters coming forward now, this summer and next year and even next spring, I think. So you can apply actually multiple times and apply early. So good opportunity there. FEA scholarship is due twice a year also, in late January and in mid-September. They fund any program over 4 weeks long. So not most of the short-term programs that we have, even in the summer, but some summer programs that would be more than 4 weeks would be eligible for this. So that's a great opportunity. Any location at all, and they give the average award really is $3,500. So that's pretty good one too. Freeman Asia, as I mentioned, this is obviously for study abroad in Asia. That one's due only once a year at the end of March. Quite a bit of money there too, $3,000 to $7,000. And these are all stackable. These scholarships don't talk to each other. They don't know if you got money from someone else. So lots of opportunity to sort of stack a lot of this different money. And finally, there's a lot of program-specific scholarships out there. So depending on the program you choose, they probably have scholarships for their own students doing their own programs. The amounts vary a lot, but that's another place to look, and a smaller pool of students to compete against for those dollars. So my office helps a lot with scholarship applications, and I would love to help you if you're thinking about applying for scholarships, or you're worried about it, or you have questions. Here's some of the kinds of things that we do to help. We provide a lot of essay help. So if you're writing an essay and you want some feedback, this is one of the best ways to improve your chances for winning, to be honest, for a lot of these scholarships. So I really encourage students to do that. I'm happy to read essays and provide feedback. We have a lot of other great just resources that we provide. For the Gilman Scholarship, for example, we have a recording of a workshop we did in the fall, which I can put into the chat later in the session. We also have an essay worksheet that I created to help you kind of get started with that. So there's a lot of those kinds of resources available too. This semester, brand new, I'm doing special advising appointments to talk about the Gilman Scholarship. So if you're interested in that, you can find a specific Gilman Scholarship appointment that you can make with me, and we can talk specifically about Gilman. And we do a lot of notifications just on campus and in different ways in social media and email, letting people know about scholarships and upcoming deadlines. So we're really trying to make sure people hear about those for sure. So I want to turn now to an alum who won several of these scholarships, actually. So I want to turn it over to Carden Olson. Carden.
Thank you, Andrea. So I'm Carden Olson. I was a psychology major at Augsburg, and as I studied abroad, I studied with Danish Institute for Study Abroad in the summer of 2019, and I received the Gilman Scholarship and the FEA Scholarship. So I'm just going to go over some general tips for addressing the scholarship side of studying abroad. My first tip is to just do it. Apply for scholarships, even if you don't think you'll get them, even if you don't think, that you'll need them. Just do it. That comes from personal experience. I went in kind of intimidated by these big scholarships, and but I went for it, and I got both of them that I applied for, and additional actually. So do it. You could do it. My second tip is to start early. So starting this early in terms of, kind of considering what you might want to touch on in scholarship essays, because a lot of the time the prompts are very broad and take a lot of time to kind of, you know, get through and elaborate in a manner that is like genuine and will really kind of get your voice across. And it's just really important to consider all the times that you know, you're in school while doing these essays, and that's in addition to all the academic essays that you're already doing. So it's just really important to kind of plan ahead as best as you can. And then while you're doing the writing process, it is really important to, for my third tip, to just focus on what stands out for you in terms of studying abroad. So scholarship committees really want to hear your unique story. So, you know, what is it special for you to study abroad? What can you contribute to Augsburg or, you know, surrounding communities, or how can it contribute to your career development by studying abroad, and how can these organizations give this money to you, or why should they give the money to you to help you? And I think it's also really important to realize that, you know, you might not know everything that you can contribute to studying abroad. And so something that I did was, you know, ask loved ones or professors or even Andrea. I went to Andrea a lot to kind of think of ideas of, you know, what can I write about, you know, and get feedback from people that also know you in other ways, because that can really jumpstart kind of ideas of how this can contribute and what you can write about, and make it more genuine. And yeah, so.
Great. Thank you so much, Carden.
Yeah,
so I'm just putting in the chat now the links for a bunch of the different scholarships we've just been talking about here. So I will put that in the chat for all the scholarships we just talked about. And I see that Sia actually had a question related to this. Other than Pella eligibility for the Gilman, for example, are there other criteria? There are for some of the different ones. I think there's sort of a GPA one at some point for some of them. I think FEA requires that you're a US citizen, but some don't require that, or at least require maybe that you're a permanent resident. So there are a couple things to be looking at for sure. So definitely dig into those a little bit more. There are, on all the links that I just posted, there would be eligibility information and stuff like that. I really appreciate hearing your tips, Carden. These are so important. And I think, you know, just taking the plunge to actually do it is such a big one. And starting early, yes, so important to really writing a quality essay, giving yourself the time and space to do that. And then, yes, talking about why you're special, what's your story, and why should you be awarded, I think. I mean, these are great points. Okay, so I'm gonna move on here. Just a couple other things I wanted to highlight for folks just thinking about how to choose an affordable program. There are a lot of ways to sort of think about this, but I wanted to highlight a few things. First, I would say think about locations where the dollar is strong against local currency. So this sort of ends up meaning that it's places where the cost of living day to day is lower potentially than here in Minneapolis. And that can really save you a lot of money. Your day-to-day costs really add up a lot when you're studying abroad. And so if you can keep those low, you can really drastically change the price for yourself. I would say look really closely at the costs that vary a lot. So, you know, a flight to Mexico, for example, might be $400. A flight to Korea might be $1,400. So that's a big difference in cost. And there's some things that you can do about that. I know Carden spent some time sort of researching a lot how to get good prices on flights, but there's some limit to that. I mean, you can't completely reduce or eliminate some of those costs. And so knowing, you know, how much more or less flights are, housing, meals, those kinds of things can make a big difference. Definitely ask us. I and the other advisors in our office can really point you to programs we know are lower cost. We've definitely worked on a lot of these cost estimates, and we know which programs are lower cost. Make sure to look at program scholarships, so specific scholarships for the programs you're thinking about. If they have a lot of scholarships listed there, if it seems really easy to fill out, like I think you can make some good inroads there and potentially get some money that way. I would also say reaching out to the program staff. If you're interested in a particular program and you're talking with someone who's running that program, you know, tell them that you're really struggling with the cost. Ask them to point you to specific scholarships they might know about. They might even be able to advocate for you to win some of the scholarships that they have. So I would highlight that. I've definitely had students come to me and say, I can't do this unless I get another X amount of money. Well, if we know what that amount is, we can sort of talk to this program and say, is this possible? You know, you never know until you ask. And finally, and my biggest tip, which we're going to move on to now, is sort of checking out specifically our own programs. Augsburg's own CGE programs and our exchange programs come with some automatic travel grants. So I really want to highlight those. So those affordable programs are out there, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about these. CGE semester programs that we have are really affordable for Augies for a few reasons. We're in places that have sort of lower daily expenses. Those housing and meal costs tend to be lower in our locations. And the dollar is strong against the local currency there, so it really makes that difference. So that overall lowers your cost. For example, our program in Mexico, I think the housing cost is around $2,600. That's for housing and all of your meals for an entire semester. That's way less than you spend here in Minneapolis, especially if you live on campus, of course. So those kinds of things make a huge difference. But we do give out an automatic travel grant to every Augsburg student who chooses our semester programs, $1,500 automatically off the cost of your program. I don't have you write an essay for me or anything like that. We just automatically give students those travel grants. We do have some great additional scholarships as well. So that's another place that you can go to look for additional scholarships, as well as the ones I mentioned before, Gilman and Warren and some of the different ones. But right now, we're also offering a special deal. If you apply for some of our programs for this coming fall by, I think, the 15th of February, so in a couple of weeks, we're giving out free airfare. So you don't pay for airfare at all to go to Mexico or our program in Central America or Southern Africa. That's a big deal in Southern Africa where the flights can be really expensive. So great opportunities there and all great reasons to choose our really affordable programs that we have. So you can see here a photo of of some of our place here in Guatemala where we are. We're also in Nicaragua and Mexico. So I've got some more photos here. Some other things that make CGE programs special, though, I think some important things to know. Augsburg's owned these programs for something like 30 years. So they're really deeply ingrained in what Augsburg is all about. We have a great social justice focus on all of our programs. And really deep community connections. So that's really important. All of the classes we teach on our programs are Augsburg classes that are already in the catalog and already meet requirements that we have here. So it's really a great match for Augsburg's curriculum. You don't have to sort of figure out these things about different weird credits from different countries or are these classes going to meet my requirements? All of that's kind of clear for you already. And we're really proud to have our locations all in the global south, which again makes some of those things so much more affordable. Here's a few more photos from some of our locations. In Mexico, we're in Namibia as well. There's our location in Cuba. So lots of great opportunities. Okay, I just want to give you a few other things, a few other details, some cost-saving tips. No matter what program you choose, I think these are great tips to consider. So first, it's really important to know how much money will you need. I think getting a sense of this as early as you can is really important because without this, it's hard to meet a goal if you don't know what kind of goal you have. Planning ahead too, I think is so important. The more time you give yourself before you're going to leave on your program, the more time you have to work and save money, to apply for scholarships, to figure out some of these other kinds of details. And so I think that's really important. Think about doing a fundraiser. This has worked for some students, you know, something like GoFundMe or something like that. It's a great way to sort of use your social networks to raise a little bit of the money that you might need. But I wouldn't rely on this as the way to meet your financial needs, but it can be a good supplement for sure. This was a tip from Carden. Actually, research your flight prices. There are ways to sort of buy at a certain time or find different ways of finding lower cost for flights. And that can be a great way to get a great deal and save a little bit of money. If you do have loved ones who are able, think about asking them to put cash toward your study abroad fund instead of giving you a birthday gift or some kind of other gift for an upcoming holiday. So that's something you might consider. Think about creating a budget for your time abroad. So, you know, what are your sort of day-to-day costs when you're there, and what kinds of things can you do to make those costs kind of make your money stretch further when you're actually on site. Think about, this is another tip from Carden, make a savings account to sort of hide the study abroad fund from yourself. As you save up money or as you get a scholarship, you might want to put it away in a place where you don't look at it. That was his tip. And finally, and again, make sure to talk to the financial aid team about options that you might have for other scholarships, other ways of funding or different payment plans that you may not have used in the past. So a great opportunity there.